Welcome back. You're watching Nation Tonight. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has won Sunday's election, securing for herself a fourth term and a fifth overall in power. 76-year-old Hasina swept Bangladesh's general election, which was boycotted by the main opposition, Bangladesh Nationalist Party or the BNP, for the second time in the last three elections. The daughter of Bangladesh's founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who led Bangladesh's independence from Pakistan, Hasina survived in 1975 after her family was assassinated in a military coup. She had been visiting Europe at the time. Now, India was one of the first countries to extend help. Sheikh Hasina lived in a 6-year exile in India, and when she returned to Bangladesh in 1981, Hasina joined hands with political rival, the late Khalida Zia, chief of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, to lead a popular uprising for democracy. This uprising toppled military ruler Hossein Muhammad Irshad from power in 1990. The re-election of Sheikh Hasina as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, meanwhile, is a welcome development for India. India and Bangladesh share historical, civilizational and cultural ties, and since 2009, when Hasina's party assumed power, India and Bangladesh have resolved long-pending issues. Land and maritime boundaries have been resolved. They've exchanged enclaves, enhanced connectivity and trade, and signed agreements on energy, security, and development cooperation. India has also extended generous lines of credit through the years and grants to Bangladesh for various infrastructure and social sector projects. The two countries have also cooperated closely in combating a common threat, that is, terrorism. So what does Sheikh Hasina's re-win or re-victory mean for Bangladesh? What does it mean for India-Bangladesh ties and the entire Southeast Asian region? We talk about more with the Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. She's joining me on the broadcast. Veena Sikri, good evening. Namaskar. Thank you very much for speaking with Mirror Now. Ma'am, this is another victory for Sheikh Hasina. This was not an unexpected victory. People and observers like you around the world were expecting this since the opposition had boycotted the elections. But what do you really make of Sheikh Hasina and the victory she's seen yet again in Bangladesh?
Well, I think you're right about saying that it was not unexpected, but I may say that it has come as a comfortable victory. At the same time, the people seem to have accepted this. Now, that is a very, very important point because one of the issues that had come up was, of course, the major party, BNP, had decided to boycott and on the grounds that they wanted a caretaker government, but the caretaker government itself had been declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. Despite that, there were rallies at the end of October, and the process of violence and arson started. Policemen was killed, trains were burnt, mother and small children died, buses were burnt. So this has created a lot of anger among the people. Bangladesh now, with its economic prosperity, has a sizable middle class population, and the middle class is always a big factor for stability. They don't want this kind of, you go out in the day and you don't know whether you're going to come back and things like that. So there was still nonetheless a feeling of apprehension that after the elections, what will the reaction of the people be? Will they express anger because they think it's a non-participatory election? Will they accept the election results? What will the turnout be? What will the voter participation be? So all these questions were there, even though it was known that major parties like BNP and Jamaat were not participating. I want to say that at the end of today, the results were declared early in the morning. It seems everything is back to normal in Dhaka, and the people have accepted the election results. And today, even one of the BNP leaders was heard saying in a press conference, well, all we have to do now is wait for another 5 years. So if they were expecting any kind of an uprising, it does not seem that anything like that is going to be happening. This is a very welcome development because it means that the factor of continuation the factor of stability and the factor of continued prosperity and growth in Bangladesh can now again be focused upon. And I think for us in India, that's a very important point. The Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of Dhaka, of Bangladesh, have a very good rapport, a very good, important cooperative relationship among each other. 2 years ago, in 2021, on the 50th anniversary of the Liberation War, Prime Minister Modi was invited there as the chief guest. And he was there with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. It was it was very symbolic because in 1971 there was India and Bangladesh shoulder to shoulder, and in 2021 India and Bangladesh were shoulder to shoulder. So now, after these elections, we can certainly hope that this cooperation will continue, whether it is the areas of continuity, of connectivity, areas of trade, areas of security and cooperation in defense, areas of joint projects like the BBIN, Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, sub-regional cooperation, electricity being traded between India and Nepal, India, Bangladesh and Nepal, Bhutan, India and Nepal. So it's a tremendous growth factor for all the countries of the region. And because with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's
government... let's talk about the bilateral relationship in a bit, ma'am. But, it's interesting that you talk about the continuity and that the fact that there has been no uprising, because the West has continually cast doubts on the democratic processes in Bangladesh, the electoral process in Bangladesh, and the fact that the opposition party like the BNP has boycotted it. What do you really make of this kind of, the doubting, the questioning of the whole democratic process in Bangladesh? Because we have been seeing Sheikh Hasina win one election after the other through the decades.
Well, let me take you back on that a bit so that we can put this question of her winning again and again in perspective. She did win one election from 1996 to 2001, and then after that you had Begum Khalida Zia for 5 years, and you had a 2-year caretaker government backed by the army. In 2008, an election was held by the army-backed caretaker government, and in that Sheikh Hasina came with a huge majority. I think she didn't expect it herself, and nobody questioned the outcome of that election, that she had come back with such a huge majority. That election has been defined by everybody as free and fair. In subsequent elections, for example, there was one in 2014, and that was boycotted by the BNP again. Now, again, in that election, I can say maybe if the BNP had taken part in that election, they may well have won. But they decided to boycott it again on this issue of caretaker government. Although by that time, the decision of the Supreme Court had already been there. So they boycotted it. Now, then they realized their mistake. That, why did we boycott the elections? And, everybody said if you had taken part, you'd have won. Then came the 2018 elections. Now, that the BNP took part, but they did not win. Now, again, they were unhappy with that. That, look, we took part and we should have won. But they didn't win because, Sheikh Hasina's party got more seats. And so they boycotted parliament. And again, we're back to this, just the Awami League, more or less, with Jatiya Party and a number of other parties also there. Then come these elections, 2024 elections. Now, again, in these elections, there were a large number of parties. Of course, the BNP was not there. The Jamaat-e-Islami was not there because they'd been debarred by the Supreme Court because their constitution of that party, Jamaat-e-Islami, is not considered to be in consonance with the constitution of Bangladesh. So the Supreme Court said that you're debarred from participating in elections. But there was a Jatiya Party, there was a number of smaller parties, and interestingly, in the election results, it is the independent candidates. The independent candidates in many cases were rebel candidates of the Awami League. And in some cases, they've defeated the Awami League candidate. There are as many as 62 independent candidates. So the Awami League has won 222 seats out of 300, which is a very substantial majority, close to 75%. But you have 62 seats for the independents. Okay. Now, what these independents will do, whether they're going to join the government or stay in the opposition, yet to be seen. But I'm trying to say that whoever did participate, they had the opportunity. So
Yeah.
I know what you're saying is right,
Yeah.
that many countries in
Okay.
the West, America has imposed sanctions and they've been talking about, but they never ever
Yeah.
said, so what should happen? The BNP kept saying, have a caretaker government. But nobody in the world was saying have a caretaker
Hmm.
government because they realized that this caretaker government proposal had
Hmm.
been turned down by the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. So that definitely
Hmm.
was not on the cards. But
Okay.
then the other questions raised
Okay.
by the
Okay.
people abroad, is it going to be a free and fair election? I can tell you that there were many international observers at these elections. Many. I think even the European Union had observers. Of course,
Hmm.
India had sent observers from the Election Commission. The European Union had sent observers. A number of countries had sent observers. And whatever has come in the media so far, these observers have by and large said that it has been a free and fair election by and large. So that is
Hmm.
what I'm trying to say, that yes,
Okay.
there was
Okay.
this great
Ma'am, let
build
me
up.
also talk about the India-Bangladesh relationship now.
Mhm.
We have, of course, the two countries have enjoyed a healthy, substantial relationship where we have one after the other tried to resolve the major challenges that stand between us, whether it's the Tista water dispute or the illegal immigration. All of these issues have been challenges for India and Bangladesh, but one of the growing challenges for India in this relationship is the growing Chinese influence in Bangladesh. Has Sheikh Hasina been able to very smartly maneuver her relationship with China and India? And has India accepted that sort of narrative from Bangladesh?
Well, if you see the election manifesto of the Awami League, the main foreign policy aspect of the manifesto says Awami League believes in friendship with all, malice toward none. So this is something that the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina herself, I think, quoted even today, saying that she intends to follow this policy and she will build friendly relations with all countries of the world. So from this point of view, certainly, as you are saying, you have quite rightly said that Bangladesh has a very active relationship with China. Now, that's all very well. India has absolutely no problems on Bangladesh developing its bilateral relations with any country of the world. But if there are certain aspects of the relationship that maybe impinge on India's security interests or that may cause any kind of concern for India, I think the bilateral relationship between India and Bangladesh is strong enough and mature enough to allow for a completely free discussion of any concerns that may be there. So I think that is the important point, that the relationship has acquired a strong maturity and both sides recognize that the other person can have concerns which should be discussed in a frank way and should be taken on board to the extent possible by the other side. And this is what has been happening. I can tell you that even in the case of China, it has been happening. But of course, there are many who express a concern by some of China's actions. For example, I can tell you that when the government of Bangladesh decided to put out a policy paper on the Indo-Pacific. And there was talk about what kind of policy would the Bangladesh government have on the Indo-Pacific. Would they accept the maritime questions that
Hmm.
are there on the Indo-Pacific, or would they take account of China's sensitivities? But a very good paper was brought out by the government of Bangladesh, the Indo-Pacific Outlook paper. I don't think the Chinese government liked it too much, and I think the ambassador at that point, around that time, made a very, I think, difficult statement. An open statement rather than going for discussions behind the scene. So these things are happening. China is trying to put pressure. And I think that Bangladesh, India, all of us
Yeah.
recognize that ultimately China is not a South Asian country. China is north of the Himalayas. So if there are concerns among fellow South Asian countries, we are in the same neighborhood. India's neighborhood first foreign
Hmm.
policy is a recognition of this, that we are all in the same
Sure.
neighborhood. We deeply influence each other's day-to-day living, day-to-day economic prosperity, cross-border
Yeah.
movements. And so because of that, there is a very special relationship that we should have among ourselves. And certainly with China, anybody is free to build up, but these other issues are there. And I think that is how it's going to continue to work. And
Hmm.
I'm glad that the understandings have been created and they will continue to develop.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. Veena Sikri, thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective and helping us better understand Sheikh Hasina's victory as well as the India-Bangladesh relationship henceforth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.